Indian Forest Service is one of the three all India services that we have in India, which is basically the Indian Administrative Service, the Indian Forest Service, and the Indian Police Service. And when we say all India service, the reason being that these are the services where you need the nation state concept together. So basically, as a country, how do we manage it, how do we govern it, is done using these all India services. And the reason being that we have the administrative services which take care of the land, the revenue land. We have the forest service which takes care of the forest land, and we have the police service which is basically for the law and order throughout the country. So in a way, they are the three pillars, we can say, of administration, of governance, which keeps a country together. The Indian Forest Service has a very fascinating history. It started off as an Imperial Forest Service way back in 1864, and that's the time when the British, imperial powers had interest in the natural resources of the country. So what they wanted is that they wanted trained people to come in and kind of monetize, to kind of document their value, that how the forests are and what kind of resources they can extract from here. So originally we had lot of, if you see the history of Imperial Forest Service, you have a lot of forest army people, you have a lot of these so-called people who have the sort of a know-how or the kind of interest for the the wild and unexplored. So it started off as with service where you have explorers, you have people who can stay in remote areas and do. So that's how the Imperial Forest Service started. Once they were able to demarcate the land areas and find out that, okay, these are the areas from where we can get resources, they brought in trained foresters. So we had like a lot of German foresters who, how do we get the maximum output out of a forest, converting a jungle into a forest. So that's where these trained foresters came in, and they were able to say ki, okay, this is the forest which has the sal crop or the teak crop, and if we are able to remove the so-called lesser value crops like the mango or the silk cotton and so on, we will be able to maximize the growth of our forest. So that became a sort of a key task of the Forest Service for over a century. That is to go to map and to find out that what are the areas from where we can get resources. And that is the key role of the Indian Forest Service. And because of the way it was structured, it was open for science graduates, because they said that, okay, silviculture is a science, laying out roads is an engineering knowledge. They to identify trees, to identify that what kind of medicinal value is there. So that's how the science aspect was started, and it stayed on. Post independence, for a while, the service was not an all India service, it was given to the states. So, what we had was like provincial services. So, there were people in the forest service, but they were eventually recruited from the state. Lot many states had their services, some may not have had. So, there is a sort of a slight sort of a less importance was given. Then, historically, in 1966, there is a beautiful parliamentary debate by none other than the Prime Minister, Sri Lal Bahadur Shastri. And he said that why do we need an all India service and why do we need forest service? So, that parliamentary debate again revived the need for the forest service in the country. And by that time, we of course had our forest policy, like the 1894 policy, the 1952 forest policy, and ongoing 1988 forest policy. There was an impetus that we need to increase our forest cover to 33%. And so there was this goal, this target of having 33%, and then we wanted a dedicated cadre for this. So 1966, and after that, we have the Indian Forest Service started. Interestingly, the woman entry happened only in 1980. And the reason being that uh, Indian Forest Service, you had to be of a certain height, you had to have a certain, chest expansion and so on, which was catered towards more of, the army and the male, people, and it could never ever accommodate the women. Only once the amendments happened in the rules of recruitment, that in 1980 we had the first three women who qualified for the Indian Forest Service. And Indian Forest Service, as I said, is open to science graduates, it's open to engineering graduates, and still that process is continuing. That hasn't changed. It is also a service where you need to have a physical fitness test. So there is 15-kilometer walk for women to be completed in 4 hours and a 25-kilometer walk for men to be completed in 4 hours. One needs to not be colorblind. And I guess I appreciate that aspect of color blindness, because if you're in a forest and there is a aspect where you have to recognize trees and you have to for your own safety. So those are some of the things which have remained, which is a colonial legacy, I would say. But then as a whole, the face of the Forest Service has changed. From 1980, when there were just three women, we are now almost 300 of us who are in the Indian Forest Service. Other than the state services where we have the range officer, the forest guard, ACF, they are there. There's another cadre of that. Now, what does it take to become a Forest Service officer? Like all the services of All India services, one needs to be a graduate and one needs to be 21 years of age. So, if you are 21 and a graduate, that means even if you're in your third year and you are likely to become a graduate next year, you can still give the examination. But you can only qualify, and if you qualify the exam, unless you're a graduate, you cannot enter. So, those are the few prerequisites. And when I gave the examination way back in 1999, we used to have an exclusive standalone examination for the Indian Forest Service. And all these exams are conducted by UPSC, which is the Union Public Service Commission. And they have the syllabus, they have the exam pattern, and they also kind of take up the entire process. So earlier it used to be a standalone exam. Now it's a combined civil service examination where if as a graduate you can apply for all the services, you can have a choice of all IS and IFS, foreign service, postal, everything, and you can also have tick the box for forest service. And then there is this prelims, which they call it, examination, which is a multiple choice question, which one needs to, it's like a basic screening. And after, if the candidate is able to qualify for the prelims, then the branching out happens. So, for example, if you are an art student with you has qualified the prelims, you can still not appear for forest service, because as I said, it's only open to science and engineering. But you could always apply for the other services. And if you are a science graduate and you have qualified the prelims, you can still apply for both. So you can apply for forest, you can apply for the other services. And that's where the mains examination happens. In the mains examination, there is a choice of a subject. The subject syllabus is given beforehand. When the examination advertisement comes out in the paper, what does the advertisement say? The advertisement says how many number of positions are available that year. It also gives the syllabus for each of the subject. So my advice to the youngsters would be to choose your main subjects very carefully, because as graduates we study usually 2 to 3 subjects. Either we are studying, like I am a BSc general student, so I studied physics, chemistry and biology, zoology. But at the same time, there is a requirement that you could choose something where you feel that you have the aptitude for, and something where you think you can do a better response in your examination. So that becomes very important. And so once in the mains you take up that subject, there is a set syllabus, and that syllabus is advertised in the paper. Now, the question, the tip or the advice would be that people would say that, okay, it's a syllabus, they're asking for graduates. So, should I just limit myself to graduation level of understanding? Yes. I would say yes, but at the same time, it also means that you should be able to write something so unique which kind of gives your answer a little edge over the others. So, if you are a postgraduate, if you've done your master's in zoology, and if you are attempting the zoology in your mains, then you would still, your answer level, the quality of your answer is still expected of a graduate level. You're not, expected to write something extra specialized, but at the same time, you would like to kind of give it that extra bit, which is because you have it because of your advantage of doing masters. So, doing the syllabus, doing a thorough sort of a read through and a thorough kind of a taking up of the syllabus is most important, I feel, because it's exhaustive. And that's where, when you hear, people saying, oh, we studied 8 hours, we studied 10 hours, it's because of the syllabus, because the syllabus is very vast and we need to take care of that. So, once the mains happens, after that, there is a gap period and then there is the interview. Now, in interview, uh, we do have we do have people of all backgrounds who are part of the interview panel. And obviously, if I recall my own interview time, I was honestly nervous. I was nervous because I was a young person. I had to face this board. I had never done it before. And it was like, okay, what kind of questions will be asked? And also, we don't know most of the people in the board. Unless, we've kind of, come across somebody who is very famous or something. And but we must appreciate and understand that the interview people are not there to judge your knowledge of the subject. The interview is not about that because that's already judged in your mains. What they're looking for is the personality and also for your aptitude for getting into the service. So that is the key aspect of the interview. It is not about, so they are not going to ask you the scientific name of the pygmy hog or the hispid hare because that has already been tested in their mains. They are more in terms of, okay, if you're given a choice and if you're in the forest service and if you have to serve in the remote Arunachal, will you be able to, cope up with that? So, those kind of questions to understand, and that's the mains exam, the interview exam. After the interview is over, there is the physical examination test. Earlier, we used to have the result, and after that, the physical examination was there. But now, I think it is a combination, and the patterns would have changed. But that also I think is a little tough. And I would like to tell the youngsters to not relax easy and sit easy that, okay, we have studied well, we have, given the interview and let's now relax and, because it does take a practice and you will have to walk and complete it in a certain hours. So that should be the final for which one should do a practice. And once that's done, and you qualify, that's it. You're through. Getting into the service is 80% of the job done. But the most important is because, as I said, they are all India services, which means that as the representative of the central government, we are allocated states. And we have to, while we are, and remember that we know when we are filling up the form, we are filling up our home state at the beginning when not even we have applied for the prelims. So that's the time where you have to apply for your home state. There are criteria, of course. So for home state could be where you have done your graduation or your class 12th. I'm sure there are rules of how do you prepare go for a home state. For example, I'm a Bengali, My mother tongue is Bengali, but my home state is Uttarakhand now. And when I had appeared for the examination, my home state was UP because there was no Uttarakhand then in the year 1999. So those things are important, and one must choose the home state carefully. That's my advice to the younger generation, because we are very much mobile now. There are many people who have done their, like me, who have done their education somewhere, but they speak a different language. They are this thing. So it would be important to look at the home state. And once the home state is written, after that, what happens after the selection is that there is a very interesting and complex procedure which happens at the Government of India level. They look at all the states, and they look at that which state is likely to have a shortfall of officers if they retire. And based on that, they will come up with their own vacancy list of that particular year, and that will also decide the number of intake of officers that they are going to take. Like my batch is 2000, and we were only 25 of us. The batch previous to me had only 19 officers. The batches now, I'm told, is around 150 or 120 vacancies are there. So this aspect of what is the vacancy vis-a-vis the requirement in the state varies, and based on that, the states are allocated. So for example, in my particular home state, if there are two vacancies and there are four officers who have qualified, four applicants who have qualified, so two will get home state, the rest two will then will be available on the roster to get any state, right? So that's how the allocation happens. Once the state is allocated, terms of what the government provides, and from the best of the institutions and the best of the the support structure. So like the first training, what happens is the induction training for all India services. It happens in the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration in Mussoorie for all the services. It is usually of 3 months duration. Once that finishes, then all the services go into their respective training academies for the intensive trainings. For the Forest Service, we go to the Indira Gandhi National Forest Academy, which is in Dehradun. It has a beautiful campus in the FRI campus. It's next to Indian Military Academy and so on. So it's one of the finest locations to get, education and have a sort of a, happiness that, okay, we have come to serve the nation. And in that, during that training of almost 1.5 years, the best parts, thing is the educational tours. So almost for 6 to 7 months, we have exposure visits. And this is perhaps one of the longest in all the services, that the Indian Forest Service trainees, we get the longest in terms of exposure visits. So there are trips, let's say, to Andamans to understand what kind of forest ecosystems are there. There are trips to Gir forest to understand what's, with the lion conservation. There are even trips to the Trans Himalayas, Northeast, everywhere. So there, the planning happens, and the academy is able to, decide that which are the tours that would be useful for the officer to learn and imbibe. Once that happens, after that, uh, the trainee officers are sent to their states, which we call as probationary officers or on-the-job training. There again, it's a sort of a, I think, a 1 year, time kind of thing, where they have to just blend in. We are called as ACFs, Additional Chief Conservator, it's Assistant Chief for Conservator of Forest. And ACF, once the ACF level is done, after that, the first posting that we get is the DFO, or the Divisional Forest Officer. The IFS starts off as ACF. as I said, and that ACF period in the states can vary. It can be as little as 1 year, or it can be 2 3 years. And after the ACF period, the first posting, and which is what is very important, is the DFO, the Divisional Forest Officer, which is equivalent to, our counterparts in other services could be the DC or the SP, right? So that's where the true learning happens and you're managing a division. So the DFO posting happens for almost 12 to 14 years. And after that, what we have the what we call as the conservator of forest. Conservator of forest position is more of sort of overlooking, a couple of divisions, looking at a special theme and doing it. And after that, we have what we call as the chief conservator of forest. And the chief conservator of forest, like I am right now, the chief conservator of forest, is a senior level position, more of a policy, and where you can, look at a particular sector. And after CCF, we have additional PCCF, and then the top post, which is called the principal chief conservator of forest and the head of forest force. So that's the state structure. And in the center, we have similar, equivalent. So we can start off as AIGF, which is Assistant Inspector General of Forest. Then we have DIGF, which is the Deputy Inspector General of Forest. Then we have IG, which is Inspector General of Forest. And of course, then we have ADG and the DG, or the Special Secretary. So our top boss in the country is the DG, or the Director General of Forest, and who is also in the rank of Special Secretary. The salary structure is all throughout the same. In case of Northeast, there is a special duty allowance which can be given, because this used to be termed as remote areas. So it depends from, again, state to state. If the state governments would like to take it, they are able to provide that. I would not say that the salary is very good or is too low. It's just about comfortable. But what is the charm, I think, of a government service or of the All India or the Forest Service is the support, or the kind of, the respect. So for example, if there is a person who is a divisional forest officer, there is, in all the places you have beautiful bungalows to stay in. There is a people, the structure of manpower that one can command in the field, and also you are able to get to the beautiful places on duty. Where people go on tourism, you're actually on duty. Job satisfaction is, I think, which is there with all government office or, jobs, is that it's an assurance that yes, you're in the job, you've cleared an exam, you've qualified. Unless there is something really bad that you have done, the chances are that, you will be remaining in the service. So there is a job security for sure. In my batches, we used to have a pension scheme as well, which the government was supporting. Now we have the new NPS system. But having said that, the job satisfaction is immense, especially in the forest service, I would say, because you are in the best of the places where you have clean oxygen and clean water and this thing. And what else? I mean, eventually, when you look back, this is what one wants in life in terms of, access to a nice environment. Well, honestly, it is easy for the forester, but hard on the family, I would say, because you are. I mean, when one is young, one is adventurous, one is, exploring. It is good. You can go into places, you can stay where there is no electricity, or it's remote. But when one starts having a family, there are children, there is a spouse, it becomes difficult to, live, because you're alone, so it becomes difficult, and it depends a lot on, in terms of the family support. And most of the time is the family that makes the sacrifice, because they have to adjust to this life of remoteness and being away. Yeah. In the districts, in the divisions, is 24/7. Like right now in Kaziranga, it's a firefighting job. We have to be in readiness for anything. It could be that in the early morning we have to, during the tourism season, it would be the elephant ride or the jeep safari, and sometimes you will have to go and monitor that. Sometimes it could be that there is an instance where there is an issue of unrest, and one needs to go and check on that. For example, during the flood season, where most of the park is closed, that's the time when we have the biggest issue in terms of being 24/7 available, because the animals are crossing over from the flooded areas to the mountains, and when they are crossing, our job is to give them a safe passage. We have to ensure that whenever they are passing through the habitations, so it's a 24/7, because the animal can cross at late in the night at 2 a.m. or in the morning, and we have to be available to take care of that. So that's about the challenge in the divisions, in the field. In the headquarters, when you're a little more senior, it becomes typically routine. But then again, yes, it is something where there are additional responsibilities, like you have to respond to some parliamentary question. So then you have to work 24/7 and respond. Parks are closed for the tourists, but it's not closed. Rather, it's the other way around. For us, it's a bigger challenge because, as I said, like in case of Kaziranga, the park is closed. But then it is also the time when you have peak of floods. And peak of floods means that the infrastructure, facility, the logistics, they need to be, they are sort of compromised, and we need to kind of ensure that everything is running. So, for example, we have anti-poaching camps inside our protected area. In Kaziranga, for example, we have over 250 anti-poaching camps spread across the five districts. Now, these anti-poaching camps are cut off from the rest of the world because of floods. Now, if that is the case, then how do we provide ration to the people who are living in these camps? They have to live there throughout their lives, throughout their tenure of posting. They can't empty the camp. So now that's a challenge. That's a logistical challenge that we have to take care. And then we have to find out ways. So, for example, ration is supplied by boat to the people, and then they are giving. So, all the camps in Kaziranga, they have boats, these country boats, so that when during the time when the park is closed, they can move around in the boats. As I said, that the Forest Service intake every year depends upon that how many forest officers on an average would be required to kind of govern the resources. As you are aware, that we have a target of achieving 33% of the forest cover. That's our national forest policy. Right now, we are at around 24-25% of the forest cover. Now, this 24%, 25% of forest has to be managed by the Forest Service officers, and those officers' numbers change over years because of retirement, because of various other factors, and that determines the batch size. So, as I said, that in the batch that we were 2000, we were just 25, because that time the policy was that we will probably reduce the number, but now we have 150, 180 batch sizes. If I look back, there are several instances, because the forest is such, it surprises you every day, and we never know that what can happen and what are the different things that can happen. I remember that I was a young probationer. I started my career in Kaziranga, and I was very happy being here. So yeah, we were walking, and then there was a rhino at a distance, and it looked like a very happy rhino. It was like, happily, sitting in the mud and, enjoying its wallow. And so I was thinking, okay, it's there and we don't have to worry about it. But then suddenly it started coming towards that, and the speed and the power is that what you realize in a jungle is that you cannot match an animal. It's the way they did, and within seconds it was like at very close distance to us. And I don't know what was that. I mean, if I recollect, I think all of us, and we always, another thing is that in forest one needs to be careful, one needs to be prepared. It is not, it would be foolhardy to say that, oh, I can just walk into the jungle and nothing will happen. So here also we had a team, we had people who were carrying weapons, because when every time there is an encounter with a rhino, there are instances where you can do a blank fire and the rhino would run away. So those are, but there are instances where they don't. So the people, the front line of Kaziranga used to that. So they are very good with that. They understand when the rhino will chase and when they will, run away. So I think that happened, and they realized that the rhino is not going away. And all my very fit and very able staff, they were all on trees. And they're telling me, you have to climb a tree. There's no option now. And I don't know what came over me. I have never climbed a tree in my life, but I was on a tree. So it's just when you face it so much that you have to, there is no option. And we climbed, all of us are on trees, and this rhino is happily, it just went, and it was an angry rhino by then. It went, I had a gypsy like this one, and it went and it actually banged itself and it made a dent and then it walked off. As if to convey that this is my land, you have no business to come here and disturb me, something like that. So once it moved away, we were able to come down and we were able to do. But after all this, what I realized, and we went back to our forest academy, I narrated this incident, and I told our faculty that, sir, please teach us how to climb trees, because you teach us so many things. You do that because it really is a life saving experience. Yeah. I would like to convey to the students that if they have a liking for the outdoors, if they have a sort of a inbuilt passion to do something for the country, for the poorest of the poor in the country, then I think the Forest Service is one of the ideal platform, because it gives you the opportunity to be within the system and make a difference. So it is a service which will take you to some of those areas where you do not even have, the development has reached, but it is the last mile. Is the places where that you need to do something, make a difference, so that people also live happily and your wildlife and your you know uh, the adventurous streak in you, and then the Forest Service is the ideal platform.